1991 was the year of the Super Nintendo.
Oh, I can see that.
So that's the new Super
Back then, every kid wanted one of these for Christmas. And some kids were lucky, and thanks to whoever uploaded this random picture to Reddit. Our favorite gaming magazines made it clear the future was with the Super Nintendo. So, I never actually owned a Super Nintendo. That means that I had a lot of really unhappy Christmases back in 91, 92, and so on. We had an NES, and we just had a handful of games, and we probably couldn't afford much more than just that. But like everybody else, I knew all about these games. I mean, I read Nintendo Power like it was the Bible. We all did, right? There were so many classic games back then, and so by the time that Christmas 1991 rolled around, if you were lucky enough to have a Super Nintendo, you had a huge list of games that you wanted from Santa Claus or whoever. And if you didn't have a Super Nintendo, you wanted the system and then the same games. There was Super Mario World, of course, but everybody had this one. It came with the system after all. There was Super Castlevania 4, one of the best platforming games of all time. And if you like sports, there was also Super Baseball Simulator 1000. Now, that wasn't much better than the NES version, but the game is a lot of fun once you get into it. And then there was Bill Laimbeer's Combat Basketball. And, well, you sickos have been waiting for this one, haven't you? Yeah, Bill Laimbeer's Combat Basketball. Bill Laimbeer's game is not just bad. It is horrible. This is an abomination. In fact, I think this is the worst basketball game ever made, if you can even count it as a basketball game. I mean, this is just awful, awful, awful. But first, speaking of awful things, let's talk about who Bill Laimbeer is. So Bill Laimbeer was a center on the Bad Boy Pistons and was known for his violent play. Like most of the other Pistons of the late 80s and early 90s, Laimbeer specialized in getting his opponents riled up, and it worked more often than you would think it would. Sure, there are tons of clips of Laimbeer being punched to the floor like this one. But then there were other moments like this famous one. Yes, 1980s basketball was certainly a different time, especially those Bad Boy Pistons. And don't let that Isaiah Thomas smile fool you, he was just as bad as the rest of them. Anyway, you would think that a game featuring Bill Laimbeer would be a lot of fun, right? You get a lot of pushing, a lot of like putting people into chokeholds and, giving them the uppercut and stuff like that, that sort of thing. I mean, Arch Rivals was already an established game by 1991. Why not just stick Laimbeer in this game? NBA Jam, which came out 2 years later in the arcades, was known for its rough play. And Street Fighter 2 came out around the same time as Bill Laimbeer's Combat Basketball. Hey, imagine a mashup between a basketball game and Mortal Kombat. But no, that's not what they did. No, they just took a really crappy Amiga game and they recycled it and called it good. I'm serious, that's all they did. Bill Laimbeer's Combat Basketball was originally this Amiga game called Future Basketball. As you can see, it looks exactly the same. The only difference is that the Amiga game is actually kind of playable a little bit since it's not too slow. But it really sucks. So part of the problem with those early Amiga games is that they were created for early joysticks. The kind of joystick that had like one button, like the real old Atari controllers. Now, for some games that's not a problem, but for this game, it makes it unplayable. Take Sensible Soccer, for example. This game runs very fast on the old Amiga. And the fact that you've only got one button doesn't really matter. After playing it for a while, you get used to the flow and you can start doing some pretty impressive things. Now, Sensible Soccer works because the game is programmed to take advantage of the fact that there's only one button. So sure, the same button does everything, but exactly what it does depends on like the context of what's happening in the game and where you are and stuff. It makes you feel like you do have control because your guy does the thing that you expect him to do. Future Basketball tries to do that, but oh man, it fails miserably. So I keep passing when I want to shoot. The computer keeps passing the ball out of bounds. In fact, the computer in this game is beyond stupid. It's just absolutely hopeless. Now you can shoot the ball from anywhere. There's no depth perception at all to the game. And really, there's barely anything that even resembles the sport of basketball here. This game is bad. Horribly bad. Bad as in there was no playtesting, or maybe there was and the programmers just gave up because they didn't know what to do with it. I mean, this is horrible. This is bad even for an Amiga game. It's worse than Magic Johnson's Fast Break. So according to the manual, you're supposed to let go of the joystick and then push the button to shoot, but nobody actually plays basketball games like that. You want to move quickly so the other team doesn't like tackle you or whatever this defensive move is supposed to be. And the graphics, I mean, you've already seen them, right? The graphics are horrible. The Amiga version graphics are just absolutely awful. And in a second, you'll see that the Super Nintendo port is somehow even worse. It's amazing how bad it is. This is another one of those stupid games where they decided to zoom everything in for some dumb reason. You can't see the rest of the floor at all. You've got this map over here, but it's totally useless. I mean, why make a game like that? NBA Jam is a 2-on-2 game, and yet I can see more of the floor in that game. Super Tecmo Basketball is 5-on-5, and I can see tons of the court. So why zoom in so much? It's not like the sprites look good or anything like that. So most people back then knew that this game was bad. You can tell when you read the old magazines. And big kudos goes out to the few reviewers who had the guts to say it. So for example, the UK magazine Amiga Format wrote a scathing review of this game back in November 1990. It's remarkable for its sarcasm and its wit. And the low playability score it gave this game really says it all. But apparently not everybody told the truth, and I'm not going to go through and show you all of them. You can go find them yourself. I think over half the Amiga magazine said it was great, but they thought everything on that system was great. Anyway, so it turns out that Hewson Consultants, which is a great name for a software development company, Hewson decided to try to sell this game on and somehow convinced Hudson Soft that it should be ported to the Super Nintendo. Yeah, that Hudson Soft, right? And that's where we get this port from. The Super Nintendo version is unplayable. This game is way too slow. I went through an entire game without hitting a single shot. And that was on the easiest mode. It's nothing but frustrating, and it's just so slow. And the crazy thing is that this was the first Super Nintendo basketball game. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. It blows my mind. This is the 1990s. This is the era of Michael Jordan. They couldn't come out with a better game than this piece of crap. It's not perfect, sure, but Pat Riley's basketball on the Genesis is a lot more fun. They couldn't port something like Double Dribble to the Super Nintendo. Tecmo NBA Basketball on the NES hadn't come out yet, but even that game is better than Bill Laimbeer's piece of trash. So you know what the worst part about this game is? About the Super Nintendo port? The worst part of all? This is the worst part of all, right? This is a controller, right? It's a what is it called? A 8-bit Duo or whatever it is, but you know, it's the same thing, right? See how many buttons there are? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with those on the top, and then you have start and select, right? This game uses one button. It uses this button right here. That's it. That button does everything. The rest of them, you don't need them, right? So I thought I was doing something wrong and I went to check out the manual. Well, what do you know? It really does only use one button. The same button does everything in this game. And so you wind up frantically pushing the stupid B button to do whatever you want to do, only to watch your player fidget around in slow motion. So this has to be the worst basketball game of all time. This might be the worst sports game of all time. I've got this up there with NFL by LJN for the NES, which is horrible. I mean, it's that level of bad, and it's unplayable, and it's crazy that this was released in the early days of the Super Nintendo. Well, I already mentioned Super Baseball Simulator. It's not a great game, but it's a lot of fun. There's also John Madden Football, which came out the same month as the Bill Laimbeer game. This game is also borderline unplayable because of the crazy frame rate issues. But Bill Laimbeer's game is even slower. And it just isn't fun. In fact, it totally sucks. It's impossible to figure out how to throw the ball to your teammates. And it doesn't matter because you can't see them anyway. Your guy just does whatever he wants and then you throw the ball away. So I want to apologize to the companies that made Magic Johnson's Fast Break and Ultimate Basketball. You know, as bad as your really, really crappy games are, those games are nowhere near as bad as this horrible, horrible game. Magic Johnson's game just isn't any fun. And the arcade game is hilariously bad. Ultimate Basketball is also so bad that I think it's really funny. I love watching the computer miss dunks. But Bill Laimbeer just isn't fun to watch. It just sucks. Why would anybody want to go play this garbage? Seriously, go back and play Hoops on the NES. And the real funny thing here is that everybody associated with the Super Nintendo knew just how bad this game was. It was kind of like the dirty little secret they didn't want to tell anybody. I'll even show you. Well, Nintendo Power gave it a whole quarter-page review, believe it or not. It made sure to remind the reader that the B button controls every single action in the game. I hope that the kids got the hint. This somehow managed to get a better overall score than Home Alone, which is certainly a mystery. So right now, I really want to go through and play all the crappy basketball games I can find, right? Because I'm convinced that this is the worst of the worst. I mean, people have told me about, like the awful basketball game on the Atari 2600. I've played that, right? That game's bad, yeah. That game's nowhere near as bad as this game, right? I actually can figure out what I'm doing in that game. This game is so bad, it's so horrible, I think it barely qualifies as a basketball game. So I keep getting charged for backcourt violations even when I wasn't across the line. And in the Amiga version, you can't dunk the ball, which is really crazy. Both versions of this game are horrible. But it's the Super Nintendo version with all of its speed problems that is clearly the worst. And I think we have the all-time champion of crap. Anyway, so there you have it. I've said it again and again and again, and I'll repeat myself. This has got to be the worst basketball game of all time. I mean, this is worse than like those LJN NBA All-Star Challenge games. Remember those ones? We'll get to those. That's a crap fest, right? But at least I can stand playing those games for more than 5 minutes. I mean, with Bill Laimbeer's game, I honestly wish I could go back in time and stop myself from playing it so I can have that time back.